deal on brand new state-of-the-art Polaris vehicles at Kurtz Polaris. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. Rebates valid in U.S. through 10/31/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Financing offer valid on 2015s through 2020s, subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
Heroes Therapeutic Outreach Program and Imagination Brewing have teamed up to fight trauma in our veteran and first responder communities with a special event Monday, November 11th from 5 till 8. The entire community is invited to honor and celebrate those who are on the front lines working to save lives and protect our community. Imagination Brewing will have free food and drinks, live music, raffles, and a silent auction, raising funds to stomp out trauma. Monday, November 11th, 5 till 8. For more details, go to imaginationbrewing.com.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. It's 4 o'clock. Welcome to Montana's only statewide sports talk show. Broadcast on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Western Montana and across the state on SWX Television.
I like football!
Now, the 2017 Radio Sports Broadcaster of the Year on the show with back-to-back Montana Broadcaster Association awards for sports coverage and award-winning sports journalism. Here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. The Grizzlies, a bounce-back win. The Bobcats, another tough loss. And other stuff. It is Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Hi, how are you? Great to be with you here on a Monday afternoon. It is February the 14th. It is the dead middle of winter. Pretty clearly, that's what's going on if you take a look outside. We're happy to have you along. We're happy to be enjoying the weather such as it is with all of you broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, and online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can find us on the World Wide Web as well, 1029 ESPN.com. There, you can listen live on the Listen Live tab. How great is that? It's called a stream. It's brought to us by Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. If you want to pick up your phone and call, you can do that as well. 329-1899. The phone number, 329-1899. All guests join us via the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. Let's take a look at what we got in the show today. We are going to spend the first hour and actually probably hour and a half really talking about football in the state of Montana. We have our Montana Football Hour presented by Lithia Ford, talking about the Grizzlies' 34-17 win over Eastern Washington and Montana State's disappointing 16-12 loss at North Dakota. We will get through all of that sound for you from both Bobby Houck and Jeff Choate and others. I think we might have some Marcus Knight in there who had a big day, adding to his conference-leading touchdown total, 3 more on the day for Marcus Knight Saturday. So we will get into all of that. We also continue with our word of the day. We're giving to you, my friends, a keg and a kegerator. The kegerator from Fred's Appliance, the keg from Great Burn Brewing. We'll give you another word of the day. You'll text in the word of the day, and we will do that. We will also go around the Big Sky, see what happened, and even outside the Big Sky, the big number 1 versus number 3 matchup in South Dakota State in Brookings over the weekend as well. So we'll get to all of that stuff. That is our show outlook. It's brought to us by MissoulaGutterCleaning.com, the most fun, the most insured gutter cleaning company there is, MissoulaGutterCleaning.com. We start now with the Montana Football Hour, presented by our friends at Lithia Ford of Missoula and Colter. It was an interesting weekend, to say the least, for both Montana and Montana State. Let's start with the Grizzlies, as we were here at this game in Missoula, and Montana bounces back to a 34-17 win, a game that they were down 14-3 early on, and were down 14-10 at half, but outscored the Eagles 24-3 in the second half. I think, as always, there's 2 stories, if not more, to be told about this game, but in the main, the Grizzlies rushed 55 times, their highest rushing total. Clearly, that was a part of the game plan, given the fact that Cam Humphrey made his first start. I thought he was fine. I thought he was solid as a backup quarterback to be in there. And I thought that Montana protected him a little bit. You know, he went 20 of 29, very good total, 179 yards, one touchdown to Sammy Akem. So a fine day. No interceptions, by the way, but certainly wasn't the catalyst for this. The catalyst was the run game, bolstered by Marcus Knight, and then later also by Nick Osmo, who I thought had a very good day as well. And frankly, I thought the offensive line played really well against Eastern Washington in total. The other side of this is the Eagles are not very good, man. Eastern Washington, they have, I thought Eric Barrier was as good an individual player, at least as good an individual quarterback as I've seen. I thought he was absolutely superb. He had more drops to deal with on balls that were in the breadbasket than I can remember seeing in a Division I football game in quite some time. I mean, guys were just straight putting it on the ground. And in big spots, too. First down, situations where you're going to move the sticks and all that. So, look, I don't think the outcome is different necessarily, but what I'm saying to you is Eastern Washington, they have some good individual players. It's not just Eric Barrier. They have some good individual guys. But as a team, they're just not there right now. They just aren't. And so, they gave Montana a couple of looks early and got out to that lead. But ultimately, the Grizzlies did what the Grizzlies have been doing this year, and they shut the door in the second half going 24-3.
It's been a long time since Montana was able to establish the run early, but then stick with it and have the ground game get progressively better. I thought that was my biggest impression, was that Eastern Washington actually played really well up front defensively in the first half. I thought that Montana had a defined game plan to control the clock, control the ball, and keep it easier at least for Cam Humphrey. They had the ball for 7 minutes and 14 seconds on their first possession. A 16-play, 61-yard drive that was very deliberate, but only results in a field goal as it stalled out. I thought Eastern's tackling and their physicality on the defensive line was impressive during that stretch, and I thought that was the case throughout the first half. I thought that Dylan Ledbetter and Jim Townsend and Mitch Johnson, I thought all three of those guys played really well for Eastern Washington, and I thought DeHonta Hayes was excellent as a safety. I thought he was everywhere. And Eastern has the ball for less than 9 minutes in the first half, yet they still enter halftime with a 14-10 lead. But rather than playing like you're behind, Montana stuck with their game plan and continued to execute, and they had a score at the beginning of the third quarter that was very key for them to turn the tables. And then as soon as Marcus Knight ripped off the 45-yard touchdown run that tied the game at 17, you could tell the momentum was all in Montana's favor, and then they were able to slam the door shut like they have so often this year. So another impressive finish by the Grizz, but I thought it was even more impressive that you have finally now an offensive line and a running back who can continue to run the ball and get stronger as the game went on, and that was the key to the entire victory for Montana. It was almost a throwback Saturday at Washington Grizzly Stadium.
Well, and when you thought, too, it seems to me you would have been anticipating a pretty heavy load in the run game, at least initially, from Eastern Washington, and they certainly did get that. But even when, with about 10 minutes left in the game, I think the Grizzlies got the ball back with maybe 9:50 left in the fourth quarter, and they're up 2 scores, but it's only 2 scores, and they decide that they're just going to hand the ball to Nick Osmo and let him just pound away. Big kid, freshman, but they're going to do something that they had not. I hadn't seen him do it yet until really this game under Bobby Hauck since his return, and that is we're going to line up and just run the ball straight at you between the tackles. We're just going power, dive, power, and stop us if you can. And you know what? Eastern couldn't. And that is a remarkable shift for the University of Montana, even from the beginning of this year, where I think their running game was good, but it wasn't power in that way. And Nick Osmo picked up 3 yards. Then he picked up 5 yards. Then he picked up 4 yards. Well, guess what? That's a first down. And then he picked up 5 yards. And then he picked up 3 yards. And then he picked up 4 more yards. And you know what? That's another first down. And Montana ultimately punted on the possession, but they had the ball for 5 minutes doing nothing but running the football and letting that clock tick, tick, tick away. And Eastern Washington, Aaron Best, ends up having to use at least 1, if not 2 timeouts in that possession just to get the ball back. So now all of a sudden, okay, Eastern's got the ball. Now there's only 4.5 minutes left in the game. You're still down 2 touchdowns, and and got, really your hands tied, no timeouts remaining, and so this was I thought an impressive performance. It said 2 touchdowns, actually 17 points, 34-17, but the game essentially was salted away to me on that 5-minute possession, which was almost exclusively Nick Osmo running power rushes, and I thought that was impressive, something that we haven't seen before, and a point of optimism for a Montana team. Look, I think there's some teams or some defenses that they're going to run into where they won't be able to do that, but the fact that there's some defenses out there that they can do that too, which they could not at all before, I think it was impressive. And of course, Marcus Knight. I mean, my goodness, almost 196 total yards from scrimmage on the day. Again, 3 more touchdowns, and he was just outstanding. I mean, his vision, his feel, his ability to find, the hole and just make the right decision, the right cut, and then eventually get loose and rip off a big one. I thought it was a really, really impressive day for him.
Let's hear from Bobby Hauck and what he thought.
Certainly, to beat the team that played in the national championship game last year is a great win for us. I'm proud of our guys for their effort and how they approached the game coming off a loss and how they finished it, frankly. Aaron Best had his team ready to go. They came after us the first half, and that was tough. We were down, and we had to fight our way back, and I really like our football team's ability to do that. I think we're a second half team. I think we're a fourth quarter team, which is where we want to be playing our best on any given Saturday, and today that's what it was. So happy for our guys, and happy for the University of Montana to have 600 wins now.
He reiterated this earlier today, and you'll hear more from the Monday press conference later in the week, but he has emphasized, obviously, coming out of last season and going into this season, being a second-half team, being a team that gets stronger as the game goes on. And anytime there is evidence for that, he's going to seize on it, and certainly did there. And you can't argue it. I mean, this team, what they have been and done in the second half, and once again needed it, actually losing at halftime to come out and really make it a sure thing with that sequence you talked about, touchdown, fumble on the kickoff, touchdown again, 14 points in 2 minutes, and the game was over.
I thought the other key was Montana's ability to stop the run, too. They held Eastern Washington to 101 yards, and Bobby Hauck said in the previous Monday press conference he thought the team that would be able to control the ball in the run game and stop the run would be the team that won, and Eastern Washington was rushing for over 205 yards per game against FCS opponents, and so that's about half their total. They were also able, because they were able to stuff the run, they were then able to tee off a little bit on Eric Berry, and they got to him 3 times. He's one of the hardest quarterbacks in the league, in the country, to sack. Mm-hmm. So that was another key factor. So I thought that for the first time since Bobby Hauck's been back, it wasn't the element of surprise or the scheme or a star quarterback leading you to victory. It was domination of the line of scrimmage, and that's something I think that makes Coach Hauck very happy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He did talk about the run game at length, and why wouldn't you? 55 runs, the most, again, by Montana this season, and very successful, over 250 yards rushing on this day for the Grizzlies in total. Here's Bobby Hauck on that run game.
Bobby said on Monday he thought the team that ran the ball better and stopped the run better would win the game, and you guys certainly did that today. So just controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides, how important was that? Yeah,
kind of, I guess you'd say as predicted, maybe. It's nice to be right once in a while. But yeah, that's good hard-nosed football. It looked like late fall in the Northern Rockies out there early in the game, and you've got to be able to run the ball here. You're not going to win late in the season, and you got to be able to stop it because the other team's trying to do it. Certainly, we did a good job on both sides of that equation. Really like how our defense swarmed the ball, and really liked how our offense did the same.
You guys' run game seemed to get stronger as the game went on. What was the key to that, and how happy does that make you when you can't finish strong like that?
Well, I think that's what a team that runs the ball well, if we can stick with it, then that's the way it's going to be. And you can wear on the other side a little bit if you're persistent and have the ability to do that. Now, in order to do it, you have to be able to generate first downs and be good enough to continue on with it, be in the game, and a lot of things dictate how much you can do. And today, that's how it played out. And our guys, it was fun to watch our big guys lean on them.
And again, I think that's something that it's not just last year to this year. It's from the first, week or two of this season to now 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through the year. I think you can see the progress that this group has made. And, obviously the addition of Moses Mallory has been significant when you just talk about size and attitude that he brings to that offensive line. But, give Chad Germer a ton of credit once again, because it seems like this group in particular is taking noticeable steps forward in their progression.
They are. Dylan Cook's addition to the lineup, I think, has been huge. Him and Colton Kynes, to me, are about the same when it comes to protecting the passer, but Dylan Cook's significantly better in just getting off the ball in the run game. He's got a lot more pop, a lot more push. I think his addition at right tackle has been big. I think the shift of Cy Sermon to center has been big, and I think that Moses Mallory playing power guard has been very big as well. And then, Angel Villanueva, I'm not sure his status. He was dressed on Saturday, but he didn't play. He didn't play much, at least. I didn't completely monitor every snap of the offensive line, but Cordell Pilon's number 71. He made his second straight start, and he's been pretty good as well. And then the other thing you got to give credit to is just the addition and continued improvement of Marcus Knight. Bobby Hauck is going to kill him if he continues to fumble the football. That's why Nick Osmo got, I think, 14 of his 18 carries in the fourth quarter. Yeah. Bobby Hauck looked at Marcus Knight in the press conference. I asked Bobby Hauck, I said, what gave you the confidence to give the ball to a true freshman to salt the game away? And he looked over at Marcus. And he said, there was a reason Nick Osmo was in the game, Marcus. And so even with a guy that was, Marcus Knight was Montana's Offensive Player of the Week nominee for the Big Sky Conference. He rushed for 131 yards. He had 3 catches for 65 yards, scored 3 rushing touchdowns. Now he has 13 total touchdowns this season. And it's still the fumbling that Bobby Hauck is harping on him. I remember during spring ball when Marcus Knight first got here, he had a practice where he fumbled several times, and he was on the wrong end of the wrath after that. Yeah. And so definitely constant improvement demanded by Coach Hauck, but Marcus Knight has been a stellar addition. He has been one of the best running backs in the league in his first year with the Grizz.
Here he is, post-game, talking about his big day.
Yeah, it was a big emphasis all week. As a running back, you're always excited when you're get told that you're going to be able to run the ball. And the whole O-line very excited. So we just went to the game, ready to run the ball. And as our coaches say, like those 2, 3, 4 yard runs early in the game, later in the game, they get worn down and they become 10, 15, maybe break one. So it's just trusting, play calling, trusting the holes, and eventually they're gonna pop.
Can you break down what you saw in that 45-yard touchdown run and that tied the game at the time? Just how big was that at that time?
So we were going pretty fast, and then we got back, and I remember I got the ball, and when I got the ball, Cam just yelled, "Get it," because it was 4th down. It was third and 1. Yeah, so he yelled, "Get it," and then just followed the read and made a cut off the block and pretty much wide open.
It's interesting because when the box starts to get crowded, when they know that you're going to run the football, there's those opportunities where if you get to the second level, you might take it all the way home because there's nobody left on the back end to stop it. I mean, you saw it in Brookings on Saturday. It's 4th and 1, and the biggest play of the day is a North Dakota State running dive because 11 defenders were within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage for South Dakota State trying to make a 4th down stand. Next thing you know, it's a game-winning touchdown, and this not to that extent, not as obvious as that, but the same sort of deal where it's 3rd and 1, go get it. You're going to try and pick up 2 yards, and you pick up 45 or whatever it is and take it in for a score.
It's a good win for Montana. There's no doubt about it. And I think that there's a lot of different factors that go into it. I think Eastern's a team that's going to fade down the stretch. I think that they're not as talented as they have been. I think that's no question about it. It'd be so interesting to see what happens in the offseason because Eric Berry went to go play for an entirely different coaching staff and what has now evolved into a very different system. They're just not running Berrier like they did before. And that to me, that's just robbing Eastern Washington of almost everything that makes their offense special at this current iteration of it. So we'll see. But, it's just so fascinating to see the way that programs ebb and flow. And Eastern Washington was so darn good with Paul Wolf and Bo Baldwin, back-to-back coaches that recruited the similar style of players to a similar culture. And I know that some of that culture is the same under Aaron Best, but also some of it's just different. The way that the skill players are organized and the way that they're expected to execute, it's just a whole different thing. And Andrew Boston is a nice player, but he's nothing like the receivers that they've had in the past. Antoine Custer, he's not getting the opportunities that I think that he probably should as a second-team All-Big Sky running back each of the last 2 years. So we'll see how Eastern develops for the rest of this year and into coming years as well. And so, it's not necessarily the feather in your cap that you maybe would have hoped for coming into this year. I mean, if you just beat the number 4 team in the country, which I think they were 4 or 5 preseason, you'd be riding real high if you're Montana. And I think you still can because, again, like Coach Houck said, this team played for the national title last year, but it's not the marquee win that it would have been in the last 10 or 12 years.
No, you're right. I mean, it's a good win because anytime you beat Eastern Washington in the Big Sky Conference, it's a good win. I mean, just period. And it almost doesn't matter how up or how down they are. But after, like you said, a half decade or more of truly elite, nationally elite football, this team ain't that this year. It just isn't. And so, that is what it is. But nonetheless, I think, there's obviously a lot of positives, particularly coming out of the Sacramento State loss. You want to get it turned around. You want to get yourself right and ready, for the back end of the season, which is loaded in terms of who the Grizzlies play, headed off to Portland State this week and then back against Weber the next week. I mean, it just keeps on rolling for the Grizzlies. So, to get this victory is significant. And I thought the way that they did it too, when you talk about, you got your backup quarterback in there, you clearly put together a run-heavy, scheme into this football game, and you got everything that you needed. The defense played really well. The defense gave up 2 touchdowns earlier in this game, gave up nothing after that. I mean, 3 points in the second half. Really, I mean, they just locked it up defensively. I think that was big, and Cam Humphrey again, I thought played good football. Like he was not prone to mistakes, and he even made a couple of plays both with his legs and with his arm. Now, he wasn't asked to go out there and do more than that, which is the right thing to do, because I think you start to put him in a position that's not going to work out very well for him or for your team. But they didn't need to do that, and the fact that they continued to stick with the run game, got their defense on track, and were able to use the run game to come back in a football game is also an impressive thing. And at the end of the day, the box has been checked, so to speak. You do it and you move on.
I thought Humphrey was skittish in the first half a little bit, and I also thought they had a pretty simplistic game plan for him. They wanted him just to make one read and fire the ball, and oftentimes, he got the ball out as quick as you can get it out, and sometimes that was even too quick. A lot of times there was not a lot of development in the route stuff, but they also stuck with the game plan. The other thing that's worth mentioning in their ability to run the ball with authority is the 3 tight end set they were using. I think Colin Bingham had an outstanding game, even though he was not throwing the football. I think Bryson Deming has really developed into a good inline blocker and sort of the surprise guy. Coach Houck has not talked about this very much, and he's been asked about it a little bit, but he's been very vague about it because I think he's not trying to show his hand. But Jeff Choate talks about it endlessly at Montana State, the management of true freshmen or guys that have the ability to redshirt and how you're going to play them or not. And when you get to the point of no return after they've played that 4th or 5th game. But they've done a really good job of splicing some guys in there, namely Joey Elwell, who was their 3rd tight end on Saturday, and he played a lot of H-back wing tight end where he was moving around. He was the inline but also moving blocker, the guy that's in motion, the guy that puts his hand in the dirt sometimes, the guy that is moving all over the formation. It might seem simple, but that's not easy to do. And to be able to block like that, when you're the guy in motion, it's a distinct skill and fundamental to be able to block like that. I thought Elwell was really, really good. I know when they recruited him, I thought he was my favorite offensive guy that they recruited just in terms of being physically ready. And then on the other side of the ball, the guy that they've really, really used well in terms of splicing him in is Jacob McGoring. I think he is as physically formidable as you will find for a true freshman defensive lineman. And they played him in spots that I thought have been brilliant. They played him Saturday was his third game, but he had his coming out party against UC Davis. He had a couple hurries that led to Patrick O'Connell's sacks. He had a sack on Saturday.
Yes, he did.
The underlying story is he's from Cheney. His dad played at Eastern. So you give the kid a chance to play in the home arena against a team that he grew up likely watching, likely rooting for, and he's got a little extra juice. But if you listened or watched the game on Root or you watched the replay back, Root interviewed, or at least got some comments from Barry Sachs, Montana's defensive line coach. And Barry Sachs has coached D-line since the early 1980s when he was on Pokey Allen's staff at Portland State, and he's had a long, successful career, and he said that Jacob McGoring has the single best get-off of any player he's ever coached.
Wow.
That's high praise. And if you look at McGoring, he's just so physically mature. The kid is going to be a special player. Bobby Hauck said that he thought he was the gem of the recruiting class, and he's already showing that. Now they have a real decision to make. Do you play the kid a spot against maybe, say, the Cats? Or do you play him against Weber? Do you save him for the playoffs? Or if he continues to play well, do you just say, we got to use him?
Yeah, just go.
I mean, here's the thing. Montana's D-line is getting sacks right now. That was not the case last year. I think their D-line had 2 sacks the whole year.
3 sacks and 2 tackles for loss on the day. One of those sacks was from Bobby Hauck, but Jesse Sims got one on Saturday, and so did Jacob McGoring. Yes, excuse me, Robbie Hauck. Bobby. I mean, Bobby got all the sacks, but in the form of Robbie for one of those, yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, Montana has a lot better pass rush from its front 4, or I guess you could call it front 5 sometimes when they bring O'Connell off the edge of kind of the Reb position that they call it.
Yeah.
But, no, it's a huge improvement on this year's team, and I think it's paying dividends. When they can rush the passer with the guys that have their hands in the dirt, it makes the whole defense even more complicated and chaotic, and I think that's what you're seeing now. Montana's just a little bit less susceptible to big plays because they can get after you in so many different ways.
It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. It is the Montana Football Hour presented by Lithia Ford, the first hour of every single show on Mondays. Every week we spend talking about football in the state of Montana. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll continue talking about Cam Humphrey a little bit, and we will also talk about Montana State, their loss at North Dakota, what happened there, and where do the Cats go from here as they have now lost 2 straight conference football games. We will also get you the word of the day, so make sure you stick around for that. Hey, at the Silver Slipper, it's all about great food, tasty beverages, and their urge to have a good time. Whether you're looking for an affordable family meal or a late-night game of poker, the Silver Slipper has what you're looking for. Right now, Silver Slipper is your football headquarters with a free shuttle to every home Grizz game, 56 televisions to watch in the sports bar, drink specials every single day, a full liquor store, Tarantino's Pizzeria, and the friendliest staff in town. Silver Slipper has all you need to watch your favorite games. Visit silverslipperlounge.com for more info. Stop by today and see why the Silver Slipper is one of Montana's best-kept secrets across the street from Super Walmart on Brooks. Alpine Touch has been part of the fabric of Montana for more than 60 years. Decades ago, Russell Street started selling his touch of magic in whitefish. Years later, Alpine Touch's all-purpose seasoning remains a favorite. It's tailgating season, and there's no better way to spice up your grill before a Grizz game than with Alpine Touch. Go to alpinetouch.com now and use the checkout code ESPN10 for a 10% discount on your order. Alpine Touch is here to keep your mouth watering all football season. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
We've combined quality ingredients with home-style recipes to create the Montana Club's fall comfort food menu. Savor our tender boneless beef short rib or caramelized brandy apple pork shank. Dig into our classic savory chicken pot pie or fall for our zesty skillet lasagna. Top things off with our creamy pumpkin skillet a la mode. Scratch-made comfort food that's as real as it gets. Served 11:30 to close at the Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, ooh, pump it up.
Need to relax? Grab a drink and a snack at your Town Pump. Pick up Miller & Coors 12-pack cans, 2 for $20. Mix and match. And Lay's 2XL chips, 2 for $6. Town Pump, there's one just down the road from you.
Town Pump, right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Have you ever wondered what drives Missoulians to leave their homes in the dead of winter, in the dark, to the Glacier Ice Rink? The answer is fun. Hockey, according to science, is the best way to enjoy the long winter months ahead of us, and the only way to access that fun is by stepping through the doors of Hockey and Lacrosse Wolf. The folks at Hockey and Lacrosse Wolf will do whatever it takes to get you onto the ice and into your happy place. Custom gear fittings, deep knowledge of product and service, an absurd selection of the latest gear. Hockey and Lacrosse Wolf is a toy store for kids and adults on the corner of Brooks and Fairview next to the Nissan dealership, 2 blocks from the rink.
Hi, this is Michael Legg, Artistic Director at Montana Repertory Theater. Next at the Rep is Love That Dog, a play for young audiences. Jack's teacher won't stop giving the class poetry assignments, but Jack hates poetry. Every time he tries to write a poem, his brain feels empty. But an assignment to write about Jack's dog changes everything. Love That Dog is suitable for all ages and runs November 1st and 2nd. Get your tickets at montanarep.com.
Help protect our community from prescription drug misuse, abuse, and overdose on National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day. This Saturday, you can turn in your unused or expired medications at the Grizz game. Just look for the DEA booth at the parking lot near the entrance of the stadium. If you can't make it to the game, go to MissoulaCounty.us for a list of Dropbox locations in Missoula. This event is brought to you by Curry Health Center, Save Kids Missoula at Foundation for Community Health, and the Prescription Drug Task Force, a coalition of Missoula City County Health Department.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. The number 10 Montana Grizzlies trailed Eastern Washington 14-10 at halftime, but won the second half 24-3 behind a newfound bruising rushing attack on their way to a 34-17 win over the Eastern Washington Eagles. Sophomore running back Marcus Knight rushed for 131 yards and totaled 196 yards from scrimmage, scoring 3 touchdowns on an afternoon that UM rushed for 254 yards on a season-high 55 carries.
In his first career start at quarterback for UM, junior Cam Humphrey completed 20 of 29 passes for 176 yards, including a 6-yard touchdown pass to Sammy Akem with 12 minutes to play that helped UM seal its third Big Sky Conference victory. The Grizz are on the road this week at Portland State. After contributing to 3 of Montana State's 4 sacks, of North Dakota quarterback Nate Ketteringham, MSU junior Troy Anderson almost saved the day for the Bobcats in Grand Forks. The All-American two-way star ripped off a 49-yard run that set up the 31st rushing touchdown of his illustrious career and gave Montana State a 12-10 lead with 8 minutes remaining. But the Montana State Bobcats allowed a blocked punt in the UND end zone that led to the game-winning score as North Dakota posted a 16-12 win. The Bobcats now lost 2 straight and sit 2-2 in league, 5-3 overall. MSU returns home this week to host Southern Utah.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Head out on the highway, looking for adventure, and whatever comes our way.
It is the Montana Football Hour. It is presented by Lithia Ford, and it is a fabulous Monday. 10 degrees, wind blowing snow sideways, now fully iced roads. Can we go skiing yet? Is it time? We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 84 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. We continue in the Montana Football Hour presented by Lithia Ford. By the way, we're going to spend a considerable amount of time on the Bobcats game as well, but it is going to spill into the second hour, just so you know. Just hold on to your hats for that. Coulter, let's talk about the quarterback situation for the Grizzlies. Cam Humphrey making his first start, 20 of 19, 176 yards, had a touchdown, also made some scramble plays with his legs. 9 rushes for 35 net yards. He had a sack in there. He really rushed for 41 yards on the day. Again, I thought he was good. I thought he was solid. I thought he was everything that you would want, or at least certainly positively be able to expect from a backup quarterback starting in his first game. I thought he delivered for this team exactly how they needed him to win the football game. They didn't rely on him to get it done, but they did rely on him to not lose it for them, which he did not. And also positively, he ripped some seam balls in there, man, that were absolute dimes. And he picked up a couple of big plays with his legs, either getting out of sacks or even on called runs, lowering his shoulder and running a couple of people over and getting it done that way as well. So I thought it was impressive. He missed a couple of balls. There's a fourth down, opportunity, and he was just flat low on the throw, incomplete. So that went over to Eastern Washington. He was behind Sammy Akem on one play that may have been a touchdown. Certainly would have been a big play in the pass game. Wasn't quite there. You know what? Him and probably everybody else playing the position just about, are going to have those in there. But again, you can't argue, 20 of 29 is an outstanding percentage, a completion percentage. And for him to do it in this way, I thought was really good. And again, I thought the coaches did what they had to do, but were also smart in scheming this thing up where they went 2-1 run pass in this football game, period. 55 passes, 29 rushes. They ran the ball double the amount that they threw it, and that's not by accident. They knew who was out there, they knew what the situation was, and they went and got it done that way, and that's great. So it was a good team win. Let's hear from Cam Humphrey, his impressions on his first start, and then we'll talk a little bit more about him. But here you are, Cam Humphrey, Montana's quarterback on Saturday.
I mean, going into last week, I was kind of aware of the situation. I knew the team was going to rally around me. The defense was going to step up, and they did. Linemen played a hell of a game, and we have a pretty good running back behind us too, so it made it easy for me.
Cam, you've had a front row seat to watch your guys' offense finish so strong in a lot of games this season. Being at the controls of it, what was it like to sort of feel the momentum build like it did in the second half?
It was exciting. I mean, I have a pretty good role model ahead of me. Dalton's a hell of a player. And then, like I said, everyone around me just stepped up and really made it easy for me to get in there and just kind of operate. Our run game really turned on for us, and it was good to see for sure.
Coulter, what was your impression of Cam Humphrey overall, and where is this team with Cam Humphrey as their quarterback? We'll talk more about Dalton Sneed and his potential return, and I would say expected return, if not this week, but at some point soon, and perhaps even this week. But where are they right now if Cam Humphrey is the quarterback?
It's a good question. I think Cam Humphrey's talent is good. I think he has a good arm. I think he can throw. I think he actually has a great arm. I think he can throw the ball far more better than adequate. He's a good thrower of the football. To me, he just seemed like he had happy feet. He was a little bit gun shy in the pocket for the first half, but he settled in the second half, and a lot of that is the run game. Also, a lot of it is just the way that Montana's offense is so momentum based, and when they get rolling, when they start operating at tempo, everybody performs better. And I thought the throw of the day was his last touchdown throw, his only touchdown throw to Sammy Akem about 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Perfect back shoulder, threw it on a dime. It was really, really good completion and a really, really good touchdown pass by him. I think that's something you can build on. But as far as this week's matchup, and we'll get more into Portland State and what Portland State's flex defense holds, but Portland State's got one of the best defensive lines in the conference, especially when it comes to stopping the run. So can Montana's offensive line rise to the occasion and compete in that avenue? Because you're going to have to be able to run the ball if you want to keep Cam Humphrey comfortable. Also, then if you're having trouble running the ball, can you stick with it? And where do you find easy throws? Because Dalton Sneed was utterly flustered by this Portland State flex defense last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was 1 of 12 in the first half. Couldn't find a rhythm. They found something late in the fourth quarter, and they came storming back, but it just wasn't enough, and then they ended up losing. They took the lead and then ended up losing on a last-second field goal. It's not the ideal not the ideal defense for a quarterback like Cam Humphrey to have to go against at this moment in time, but I do think that Montana can take a little bit of confidence in the fact that he has a game under his belt. If this was going to be his first start as a Grizz on the road, I think the Montana would be in trouble. I think that they're going to be able to get something together for him to hopefully at least keep him in the flow and keep him comfortable this week.
If he plays, if he ends up being the starter this week, I think it's such a better situation that it is a road game against Portland State. Because you're playing in a park, man. You're playing at Hillsborough High School Stadium, and, it's not going to be very many people there. In fact, it'll almost certainly be a Grizz-heavy crowd, all things considered. And I think for a lot of guys, football's an emotional game, an energetic game. You want to get up and go out and, you feed off the crowd, you feed off the environment and all that. But if you're a quarterback, especially who's, brand new in terms of the starting and hasn't played a lot of minutes and that. Being in an environment that's so, if I can say, calm like that, I would think would actually be beneficial to you. Like, you can sit there and really kind of hone in on it. There's not a lot else going on, and you can sort of just lock and load into what it is that you're doing as a quarterback. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to overcome the defense that is presented, because, like you said, Bruce Barnum's defensive scheme is a unique one, and it is when it's running well, it causes problems for the offense. So that's kind of a different deal altogether. But yeah, man, like, to get out there, play your first game, and get a win out of it, it's it's all good for the University of Montana that way, and they got exactly what they needed out of Cam Humphrey, it seemed to me. Dalton Sneed, by the way, Bobby Hauck saying today in the press conference, will practice on Wednesday and Thursday, and then they'll make a determination at that point whether he's going to be good enough to go. He was in a walking brute and on crutches on the sideline on Saturday. That seemed like a lot of things to be in and on if you are actually getting close to play, but also if the fastest way for your foot to heal is to have nothing, zero going on, except for when you're, actually out there rehabbing it and doing, PT and so forth, then so be it. Then wear the boot and do the crutches and get in a wheelchair if you got to. I mean, whatever you got to do. Elevate the thing, and however you got to get it to go, then that's what you got to do. And if he's good enough where he's able to practice and actually move around and run around on it a little bit, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Dalton Sneed was back on this Saturday.
If it is a high ankle sprain, which is what all signs are pointing to and what all signs indicate, he's not going to be 100% until after the season's over. So then it just comes down to how can you operate without hurting yourself more? How can you operate under a reasonable level of pain? And how can you operate without hurting your team? I think that there's going to have to be some real discussions between the trainers, the coaching staff, and Dalton Sneed, because you don't want to push this thing and hurt yourself, but you need him at the end of the day if you want to be nationally competitive. I think Cam Humphrey is a good stopgap, and I think that when Cam Humphrey gets his turn to be the full-time starter and he has a full 8.5, 9 months worth of off-season to be the guy and assume the leadership role, I think that he'll be good. I think he really will be. But Dalton Sneed's a spectacular athlete, and he's a phenomenal player, and he's the heart and soul of the offense. I mean, he is the lone captain on offense for this football team. So they got to have him back. I think that him and haul their way through the rest of the Big Sky Conference. They'd have don't have really any easy games coming up, because Paul State is competitive and Weber State is number 3 in the country, and Idaho's going to be a war, even if Idaho has been up and down this year. And of course, Cat Grizz is going to be a war. So to be nationally competitive and win a couple of those games against the nationally ranked teams and set yourself up to potentially get a playoff seed, potentially get a home game and a playoff bye, I think you got to have Sneed eventually. So how do you play it?
Right.
Do you give them another week off? But that's the thing. Like I said, the worst scenario would be if they're going to. I honestly think the worst game in the league that Montana could play if it was Cam Humphrey's first start would be going to Portland State.
Yeah.
But I still think it's a bad matchup just because that defense, it flusters even the best quarterbacks.
But what do we know? What do we know about Dalton Sneed and Bobby Hauck? There's not going to be any, well, let's see if we can get you 4% better so we have a better chance next week. It's if you can go, then you're going to go. And if Dalton Sneed goes, I think I can play, everybody shut up and give me my helmet.
That's why you got to have the communication with the trainers, though, because you got to know if he can hurt himself worse, because you can't let the kid hurt himself worse.
Absolutely.
And if it just comes down to pain management, then you roll. I mean, you roll. He's got four games guaranteed left in his college career. You roll with that guy.
Absolutely. It is Tutel Nuanez. It is the Montana Football Hour presented by Lithia Ford of Missoula. And it is time to give you the word of the day. Boys and girls, we're giving away a keg and a kegerator. How great is that? Okay? On a day like this, you're going to text me. I know this is what's going to happen. Phone number 200-8184. Area code 406-200-8184. We've got a keg from Great Burn Brewing to give to you. And it's going to be inside of a kegerator from Fred's Appliance so that it will be dispersed with the proper amount of carbonation and perfectly chilled at all times. How great is that? Okay, 200-8184. The word of the day today is actually 2 words, or it's a word to number. Week 9. Week 9 of the season is where we are at. So that's the word of the day. Week 9 to 200-8184. You will be entered to win. Montana Football Hour is sponsored in part by Lithia Ford. Right now, get 0% for 72 months on the 2019 Ford F-150. The Ford F-150 makes tough tasks look easy, whether it's working on the job or heading out on a weekend of recreation. Also available is the all-new 2019 Ford Ranger at 1.9% for 60 months. The all-new Ranger tested under more extreme conditions than you would likely ever encounter unless you're driving in Missoula today. Set a date for your next adventure. You see, it's a little weather joke mixed right in there into the read.
You're such a comedian.
You can test your Ranger out today. Your Ranger, it's ready to get you there. Of all the days to have one, today is probably that day. Lithia Ford, across from Super Walmart on Brooks, has a huge inventory of new and used cars and trucks. Visit LithiaFordMissoula.com for more information. Search new and used inventory, financing specials, and get yourself in a Lithia Ford today. Lithia Ford is an official sponsor of the Montana Grizzlies and Tutel Nuanez Montana Football Hour.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process, so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
It's time for the second annual Flippin' Fun Glow Run, a fundraiser for the Ravalli County Gymnastics Booster Club. Don your neon and lace up those running shoes for a glowing 5K and Kids Mile Fun Run at the Corvallis High School on Friday, November 1st. The run starts at dusk and the course is lit with glow sticks. Competitors are given glow sticks to wear. There'll be prizes to win, and all proceeds support gymnasts' competition fees. Sign up at eventbrite.com before or on October 23rd to get an event t-shirt.
Are you interested in putting solar panels on your roof? Do you want the latest on Montana's renewable energy policies? The Montana Renewable Energy Association is a leading voice for renewable energy, education, and advocacy in Montana. From community-based clean energy events to advocating at the Montana legislature, they work to ensure Montana's future is powered by the sun, wind, and earth. Find out more about MREA and join as a member by visiting montanarenewables.org or calling 406-214-9405.
Heroes Therapeutic Outreach Program and Imagination Brewing have teamed up to fight trauma in our veteran and first responder communities with a special event Monday, November 11th from 5 till 8. The entire community is invited to honor and celebrate those who are on the front lines working to save lives and protect our community. Imagination Brewing will have free food and drinks, live music, raffles, and a silent auction, raising funds to stomp out trauma. Monday, November 11th, 5 till 8. For more details, go to imaginationbrewing.com.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
The Montana State Bobcats, tough day on Saturday, losing 16-12 in Grand Forks at North Dakota. Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. It is the Montana Football Hour presented by Lithia Ford. Hey, if you're looking for us on the interwebs, on the social medias, there we are, at 102.9 ESPN. That's the handle on Instagram and Twitter. At Gus Tutel, at Skyline Sports, MT on Twitter. At R2Tel, at C Nuanez on Instagram, if you're looking for him. Coulter, this was a bad loss for Montana State. Coming off a loss at Sacramento State, but then coming off a bye and going up against a North Dakota team that is a good team, but a team that if you're in the top 10 in the country, I think it's a team that you got to beat. Montana State defensively played a really good football game, did everything they needed to do to win the game. Troy Anderson did what he does. He was part of 3 of their 4 sacks. He had the run that set up the lone Montana State touchdown, and then he was the guy who ran in the lone Montana State touchdown. And then they had a couple of mistakes, but the one that you just simply cannot have, where in a game where your defense is playing lights out and you have the lead late in the fourth quarter and you get a punt blocked in your own end zone that's recovered for a touchdown by North Dakota with 4 minutes and change left in the football game, and North Dakota takes a 16-12 lead, and that is that.
Yeah, I mean, the mistakes have been so prevalent all year for Montana State, and I think that that's just maddening for anybody that follows the program or anybody that is involved in the program. And there was several mistakes that I thought just absolutely killed the Bobcats in this game. First, they had a false start when they were lined up for a field goal. That would have been a 48-yarder, and it pushed it back to a 53-yarder, and Tristan Bailey just missed it. That would have been a huge three-point play in this game, considering there was hardly any offensive touchdowns scored in this game.
7-6 at halftime.
They gave up the one touchdown North Dakota scored was on a trick play, wide receiver reverse pass that had busted coverage on the back end, and the receiver was wide open. That's one that maybe you deal with because it's just a good play call at that moment, and they executed it. But not getting that field goal in the second half hurt them. And then it was not just the blocked punt. The confluence of events and just the circus that happened in that 5-minute span. Troy Anderson comes into the game. Tucker Rovig is struggling horribly. He can't do anything.
13 of 26 for 77 yards.
I mean, do the math. What's that, about 2.8 yards per completion? I mean, it's not good.
Horrendous.
There was 2 different times on the first half when they had a 3rd and 3 or shorter, and they completed a pass. They completed the pass that was not for a first down. It's not even like it would be harder to convert the 3rd down on the ground. It would be harder. Like the hardest scenario you could come up with, though, is managing to complete multiple passes of under 2 yards and not get first downs. How? I don't even know. The rationale and the execution is also bad. But the sequence of events that really killed him, they finally put Troy Anderson gets in at quarterback. He rips off his lone long run of the game. 49-yarder all the way down the 1-yard line. Punches it in for his 31st career touchdown on the very next play. Montana State's up 12-10. Inexplicably, they go for 2. Why? I don't know. And then the play that they called was just ridiculous. And, I mean, let's play Jeff Choate, just his justification of the 2-point conversion try.
That's the thing to do. It's a 2-point game, and so you make it a field goal game at that point if you convert the 2-point play. And so we didn't feel great about some of our 2-point plays against the style that they play in that situation. And so we had that up, and quite honestly, I think it was there. Our long snapper, I just didn't identify the guy right over the top of him. And so, I mean, it was a 2-point game at that point. You go for 2. You make it a field goal doesn't necessarily win the game for them, and I know that they're good in that situation.
They ran, for those that didn't watch the game, they ran a swinging gate style play with multiple guys outside the hashes, and then Casey Bauman and the center, and that's it. In North Dakota, Jeff Jones says he doesn't identify the guy over the top of him. There were 3 of them, maybe even 4. It's mystifying to me that you could have Troy Anderson, who's one of, if not the best short yardage player in the conference, let alone the country. You have one of the best offensive line units in the conference. And yet you're going to run a swinging gate with a 3rd-string guy, essentially, because at this point Troy Anderson is the backup quarterback. Make no mistake about it. With a 3rd-string quarterback who hasn't been in the game yet, who is objectively your worst runner, you're not going to have any of your best blockers on the field. The guys that are outside the hash marks was like Derek Marks and Jason Skrimpos and a bunch of D linemen. It was inexplicable. I maybe agree with Choate's rationale of going for 2 there, but why call that play?
The going for 2, you can debate whether you should do it, shouldn't do it. You go up 3, then it's at least a tie. If there's a field goal, you go up 4. Now you got a lead. I personally am always going to not always, but I am easily swayed by the aggressive side of it. You want to go for 2, go for 2. I'm for it. I don't mind that choice at all. The play call, like if you watch the play unfold, it's completely inexplicable, and then the explanation afterwards of he didn't identify the guy. Well, you're right. I mean, that's because it was 1-on-4 or 1-on-3, and all of the other offensive linemen and also several defensive linemen who are on the field for this play are just split out wide by the hash marks. Like, I don't understand. I've never really understood the swinging gate thing anyways, and certainly nobody went out there with those guys. There was 3 unblocked defensive players for North Dakota who, as soon as the ball was snapped, ran in and tackled Casey Bauman. I mean, it was absolutely hopeless, and it wasn't like it wasn't poorly executed on the part of Montana State. It was absolutely inexplicable in terms of what they're doing in that moment and how there was no possible way for it to work.
I wish I would have been in the postgame in Grand Forks, because I would have asked. The question is not why did you go for 2 right there. It's what was supposed to happen on that play.
Right. Correct.
I mean, just looking at it from a layman's perspective, it just looks like such a dumb play. Well, but there has to be something more to it, right?
Exactly.
Like, there was something that didn't happen that was supposed to happen. I mean, you're not just going to run 1-on-5 case. I mean, it was the long snapper. I don't even know his name because he's new to the program. I mean, no offense to the kid. He's been fine this year, but I don't even know his name. And then you have Casey Bauman. Those 2 versus a whole front of North Dakota. How? Why? But the mistakes didn't stop there, though, because then on the ensuing possession, Montana State's up 12-10. Okay, they need a defensive stop. They get it. Their defense actually played really well in this game.
Yes, they did.
Nate Ketteringham was good with his hot routes and getting the ball out quick, but they were still able to get to him, sack him 4 times. And Montana State was really good against the run. But then, so they forced the punt.
85 total yards rushing for North Dakota in this game,
which is impressive.
Very good. Very good defensively by Montana State.
Montana State forces a punt, and then when the punt is made, it was a punt where it was lingering like around the 20 or 15-yard line, and no one fielded it, and so it gets pushed all the way back inside the 10, maybe even inside the 5. So now you're pressed up against your end zone. And then to make it even worse, you get another false start. So now
they actually gained some yards, and I believe, if I remember, there was a sack in there too, right? I mean, they gained some yards, actually created some space, but then went backwards twice.
So then you're forced to punt from your own end zone, and then the error of all errors, they don't block the uncovered guy coming off the edge, and he just has free reign and blocks the punt, and then it's touchdown, and North Dakota's up, and Montana State was not able to rally. So, I mean, all things considered, it was a had-to-have-it game in Grand Forks, and Montana State didn't get it. And now all of a sudden their backs are against the wall. And Jeff Choate said today, he said, sometimes you need the situation to be at its worst for us to play our best. They've proven they can do it before. It's just a very precarious way to live if you're the Bobcats.
Well, here's the thing. Again, for Montana State, they're now 2-2 in Big Sky play. But they play Southern Utah and Northern Colorado back-to-back, the 2 worst teams in the Big Sky Conference. And they're, I mean, if they were to lose either of those games, it would be absolutely disastrous. Absolutely disastrous. I don't think that's going to happen.
So, like now, Southern Utah lost 19 out of 21 games and then went and dropped 59 against Idaho State on Saturday.
Yeah,
so,
they did.
I mean, maybe something finally started clicking. Who knows? But
Idaho State did get a win.
Montana State is just really, really fortunate that they're back home.
But they are, I mean, this is a really bad loss. This is a really bad loss to come off of a loss and then have your bye and be, presumably getting right, getting up, and being ready to go, and then go in and have your own mistakes cost you the football game. It's a tough situation. We'll continue talking about Montana State and this game in Grand Forks, what it means and what the outlook is for them right after this. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. It's Montana Football Hour in the books, presented by Lithia Ford of Missoula. Also, I want to mention this. At the Silver Slipper, it's all about great food, tasty beverages, and their urge to have a good time. Whether you're looking for an affordable family meal or a late-night game of poker, the Silver Slipper has what you're looking for. Right now, Silver Slipper is your football headquarters with a free shuttle to and from every home game, 56 televisions to watch sports on, drink specials every day, full liquor store, Tarantino's Pizza, and the friendliest staff in town. Silver Slipper has all you need to watch your favorite games. Visit thesilverslipperlounge.com for more information and stop by today to see why the Silver Slipper is one of Montana's best kept secrets across the street from Super Walmart on Brooks.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Tires. You know, we've been helping keep folks safe on the road around here since 1952. That's why you can save up to $152 on a set of 4 select light truck and SUV tires during our fall tire sale. So swing by or book an appointment at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952. Limited time offer while supplies last. Discount depends on tire size and type. Cannot be combined with other offers. Details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds. If you're looking for a charming neighborhood hideaway, come into Katie O'Keefe's. Located in the corner of the Stevens Center, Katie's has an inviting atmosphere with ample parking and a location that's easy to get to and hard not to love. With drink specials every night of the week, including Tequila Tuesdays and Whiskey Wednesdays, offering $3 premium cocktails. Katie O'Keefe's is the welcoming, warm hangout you've been looking for. Come into Katie O'Keefe's, where the drinks are always cold and the people are always friendly.
Here in Montana, we are lucky to have huckleberries growing high up in the mountains. Flowco brings them to you at each of our locations across western Montana with Huck Lemonade, Huck Smoothies, and yes, even a scoop of huckleberries on your morning oatmeal. Stop by for yours or go to FlorenceCoffeeCo.com.
The best flavor under the big sky, Lawrence Coffee Company.
It's a rite of passage, that first bank account. Explore the great options for your young adult with a visit to Farmer State Bank, online at farmersebank.com or in person at any of our 9 locations in western Montana. Our checking and savings accounts are designed to fit any lifestyle and budget with the flexibility, innovations, and security today's consumers demand. Start out right with Farmer State Bank, your Montana bank since 1907, member FDIC.
Hi, this is Michael Legg, Artistic Director at Montana Repertory Theater. Next at the Rep is Love That Dog, a play for young audiences. Jack's teacher won't stop giving the class poetry assignments, but Jack hates poetry. Every time he tries to write a poem, his brain feels empty. But an assignment to write about Jack's dog changes everything. Love That Dog is suitable for all ages and runs November 1st and 2nd. Get your tickets at montanarep.com.
Have you been hurt or disabled? Are you missing time from work and not sure what to do? I'm attorney Chris Helmer, and Clark Fork Law Offices in Missoula is here to help. Our team specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. We fight for the benefits you deserve. Call Clark Fork Law at 728-0168 for a free consultation or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana. KKVU HD3 Stevensville and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. Number 10, Montana trailed Eastern Washington 14-10 at halftime, but won the second half 24-3 behind a newfound bruising rushing attack on their way back to a 34-17 win. Sophomore running back Marcus Knight rushed for 131 yards, totaled 196 yards from scrimmage, and scored 3 touchdowns on an afternoon in which UM rushed for 254 yards on a season-high 55 carries.
In his first career start at quarterback for Montana, Cam Humphrey completed 20 of 29 passes for 176 yards, including a 6-yard touchdown pass to Sammy Akem with 12 minutes to play to help UM seal their third Big Sky win. The Grizz on the road at Portland State this week.
After contributing to 3 of Montana State's 4 sacks of North Dakota quarterback Nate Ketteringham, MSU junior Troy Anderson almost saved the day for the Bobcats in Grand Forks. The All-American two-way star ripped off a 49-yard run that set up his 31st rushing touchdown of his career and also gave MSU a 12-10 lead with 8 minutes remaining in the game.
Well, Montana State allowed a blocked punt in the UND end zone that led to a game-winning score as North Dakota posted a 16-12 win over the Bobcats. MSU has now lost 2 straight and sit at 2-2 in league play, 5-3 overall. Montana State returns home to face Southern Utah on Saturday.
This ESPN Sports Center is presented by Clark Fork Law.
Hour number 2. Tutel and Nuanez on a beautiful Monday across the state of Montana. Winds died down a little bit, still cool. Drive slow, people. Just means more Tutel and Nuanez for you. You know, it's a great thing. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. If you missed anything in the first hour, check it out on the podcast. Podcast available on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. Go search Tutel and Nuanez. It will come up for you. Podcast available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. If you want to call, 329-1899 is the phone number, 329-1899. All guests join us via the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. You can also listen live on our website, 1029ESPN.com. Click on the Listen Live tab. Listen to the stream. The stream is available thanks to Opportunity Bank. Your local bank, your opportunity. Coulter, we wanted to talk a little bit more about the Montana State game. We spent most of the first hour talking about the Grizz. We want to spend some more time specifically on what Montana State did on Saturday and needs to do going forward. Jeff Choate used Troy Anderson a few times. Again, we still don't know the full extent of health or how much he came back, but he rushed the ball 7 times for 65 yards, and it's just like
49 of them on one run.
It's just a guarantee that he's going to rip a big one. It's just if you give him the ball 5 to 6 times in a game, he's going to have a big one in there, which also begs the question, well, why not give the ball to him maybe a dozen or 15 times? Again, I do think that they have to protect him from himself to a certain extent, because everything that we've heard and that we know about Troy Anderson is he will cover up anything that he possibly can to get onto the field. I mean, he just wants to be out there in the worst way, and it's something that you got to like about a guy. But also, if you're in bad shape, if you've been dinged up or whatever, it can be costly, and you got to protect them from themselves to a certain extent. Here's what Jeff Choate said post game about using Troy Anderson.
It was out of necessity, but he's a guy when the game's on the line. We need to get the ball in his hand, especially if Travis was nicked up a little bit, and so that was part of the reason to go with him.
I mean, why wait till the game's on the line?
They've just dug themselves such a hole.
Yeah,
you already went away from Casey Bauman, so how do you go back? They should make a change at quarterback. But they can't, because they don't have one to make, because you already buried the hatchet when it comes to Bauman. You already put Troy Anderson in the rear view because he's too worn out to actually be your starter. I mean, he had shoulder surgery on his throwing shoulder. He's wearing a cuff for labrum surgery. He can't throw the ball, so now he can't go back to quarterback, even if that's the essential nature of it. And now every game you play, it's just like the ticking time bomb, because Troy Anderson played the most defense he's played in his Montana State career on Saturday. He had his best defensive game. He had 12 tackles and 2.5 sacks. It was his best defensive game. And then he rips off what should have been the game-winning touchdown, the run to set up the game-winning touchdown, and then punches it in as well, and he still lose. I mean, the kid couldn't have tried to will them to victory more. You're not going to find somebody that has 2.5 sacks and scores the go-ahead touchdown. It's not possible, and the kid is doing everything he can, even with a bum ankle, even with a surgically repaired shoulder, and I don't know what they're going to do, because they can't operate on offense. And now, not only they haven't had good quarterback play during conference play, but it hasn't mattered because they've been able to mask it by running Travis Johnson at the Wildcat spot. But now that there's film out there on how to stop it, and teams know that all you got to do is just make them predictable by making them throw the ball, and that they just really can't do it. I mean, they just cannot handle the pressure in the drop back pass game. It leaves them with a very small amount of solutions. I can't wait to share our press conference from Jeff Choate on Monday with the people later on this week. So stay tuned to Tutel Nuanez for that, because there are a lot of revealing things just about Jeff Choate's theories or lack thereof on the offense, and a lot of things just about the psychology of coaching kids too. But let's hear from Troy Anderson, because to me, I mean, this is let's play it, and I want to ask you what you think of this, because this is a telling soundbite without Troy Anderson actually saying much anything.
Here's Troy Anderson post game.
That sucks. We didn't play good enough to win, and now we're going home with a loss.
What can you kind of learn from a game like this and kind of apply it moving forward?
I'm sure we're going to watch the film. We're going to get critiqued. We're going to get better. We're going to learn from it and move forward.
How good did it feel for you to kind of get back into the groove offensively and make some big plays that way?
I don't know. I just try to help the team whenever I can. If they ask me to play offense, I'll do it and try to do my best.
Does a loss like this give the team a sense of urgency at all?
Yeah.
Can you talk about the trick play that they got you on?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good call by them. We knew when they get in the high red zone, they kind of pull some tricky stuff, and yeah, they got one.
Thoughts?
One word answer to, does this create a sense of urgency? Yes. He's just a kid. He's just a guy who does whatever he's asked to do. That's it. And I don't know. Look, everybody wants guys who are about the team and are about winning. Troy Anderson is that to the hilt. Also, there's a lot of guys who are, especially in like the NFL, who are perceived as, quote, prima donnas or whatever, that it's all about me, throw me the football or whatever. And that's true. Like those guys are out there that it's all just about them. I think a lot of guys, though, who want people, throw me the damn ball, Keyshawn Johnson, is because he thinks and he believes he's going to win you the football game. It's not just because he wants all the glory or whatever, maybe he does, but it's because he thinks that if I'm the one who's out here doing this, we are going to win. I'm the best option. I'm the guy that should be doing that. Troy Anderson is hands down the best option, period, that they have. Okay? But he doesn't. He is not going to push back in that way about that. And I don't know what he wants. I don't know Troy Anderson. I don't know him. I don't know what makes him tick. I just know what I see on Saturdays, and it's remarkable. And I'm not here to necessarily critique how or where he is used. It just seems to me that if he's going to go for 49 yards on one play, every fifth play, give it to him 10 times. See if you can get 2 of those out of it. And I do think he needs to be on a pitch count. I really do. So this is a tenuous thing. What do you think?
I think it's really too bad that he's hurt. But I've come completely around on this whole Troy Anderson thing. I think that there was this drum that started getting beat and this narrative that started getting pushed a long time ago that Troy Anderson is an NFL linebacker. And I probably shouldn't tell this story, but I'm gonna, because I think that it's interesting for our listeners, and I think it's essential to the part of the story.
Ooh, juicy.
In the Montana press box, we sit next to NFL scouts, and I always try to talk to those guys because I just find it fascinating. We sat next to the guy from the Chiefs who was just deathly scared of the cannon, which was
him
great.
And everybody else.
But the two gentlemen we were sitting next to on Saturday, when the games cross over and both teams are playing at the same time, we got to keep an eye on both. Obviously, the game we're at is going to be the game that prioritizes our attention, which was the Grizzlies. But there was an hour of the Bobcat game that was going when the Grizz hadn't kicked off yet. And it was almost halftime by the time the Grizz game started. So then we can kind of overlay it and go back and forth.
The game on up
the scouts said, hey, move your phone over here because we want to watch this. We want to watch the Anderson kid. Well, of course they do. He's an unbelievable athlete. But throughout the game, then we started talking to these guys. And I've said this for a long time, but I think that there's a distinct difference between the mentality it takes to play offense and the mentality it takes to play defense in football. And the way that your brain is wired like the way my brain is wired, I always had a much easier time playing offense, because if you tell me what I'm supposed to do, or I as the center and or the quarterback can decide what it is we should do and we can dictate it, that's the way that like an analytical mind works. A reactionary mind, someone that could just react in the moment, those are the type of guys that should play defense. We've been hearing for years that Troy Anderson's an NFL linebacker. Troy Anderson is an NFL athlete. He does not have the body or the aggressiveness or the mind to play NFL defensively. And I don't mean that as a slight to the kid whatsoever. He's a point guard. He needs the ball in his hands. If Troy Anderson can dictate of what is happening in the game, no matter what the athletic pursuit is, whether it's winning the game as the quarterback or winning the game as the point guard or winning the race as the sprinter, when he's in control, that's when he's at his best. And the one of the scouts started off by saying, I can't believe they're playing this kid on defense. Isn't the point of football to score touchdowns? You have to score touchdowns to win. Montana State put 25 touchdowns on the defensive side of the ball, and now they're struggling to score. To me, that is a direct correlation. They got to figure that part out. But the other comments we heard, I mean, one of the scouts said, that kid is never going to play a snap of defensive football in the NFL. He might play on special teams, but he's not playing defense. All the comps of Troy Anderson in the league are offensive guys. He's Taysom Hill. He's whoever you want him to compare him to. I just think he needs the ball in his hands, and it's a lost cause this year, because I really just think he's too hurt to, like you said, he needs to be on a pitch count. You can't just throw him back there and give him 30 carries,
right?
Because you're just going to wipe him out for playing any side of the ball or any realm of football whatsoever. But I don't know, man. I just think that the situation, he's done so much in his career already without truly ever being properly used. Like, if they could just start this whole thing over, if they could just have, say they just still had Chris Murray and they could just play Troy Anderson at running back, the whole thing would just be completely different. But that's just not the case. And they've already gone down the slippery slope where they had to have a stopgap guy at quarterback last year that ends up getting Troy Anderson a whole bunch of miles on him, and all of a sudden he's banged up. I just don't know where you turn from here. I mean, what's the solution?
I mean, him playing, he doesn't have to play quarterback. He can play and should play running back. And I think he can play, like, if you think that he is more valuable offensively than he is defensively, okay. And I could be swayed on that. By the way, the point of football is scoring the touchdowns. It's also stopping touchdowns from being scored.
Like on offense, if you snap the ball to Troy Anderson has the ball.
Yes, I get.
When Troy Anderson's playing Sam linebacker, all you got to do is be like, let's run away from him. Yeah. What's the point of having this guy? There's been so many he's made plays on defense. He has. But there's also been so many plays where he is irrelevant in the play. When he's on offense, you can make him part of the play.
And that is the best argument you could possibly make about that to me. But he can play running back. He doesn't need to be quarterback.
And that's where they're making a fatal flaw, in my opinion, because when they're playing him on offense, they're only playing him at Wildcat quarterback.
Right.
And now everybody knows he's getting the ball so they can load up on him. They ran I'd call it a counter toss, where the quarterback takes the snap and then does like a 270-degree turn and tosses the ball to the wide side of the field, turns to the left and tosses it to the right, for example, or vice versa, where Troy Anderson gets to run the sweep around the corner. They have not run that play since his freshman year. Why? It's one of the most devastating plays in the league.
Who is the second most dangerous offensive player that Montana State has after Troy Anderson?
Travis Johnson.
Do Travis Johnson and Troy Anderson ever occupy the backfield together?
Rarely.
That's insane to me. I mean, why not put your two best guys out there? Let them run the Wildcat. Let one of them take the snap. Let the other one take the snap. Roll it out there. Run an option play. Whatever you got to do. Have them both on the field at the same time. And by the way, if Troy Anderson plays 15 snaps instead of 8 on offense, but still only gets the ball 8 times, he's not any worse for wear in terms of the amount of usage that he's getting when he's out there, but he is going to mess with the heads and the eyeballs of any defender that's on the field, no matter whether he's getting it or not. The other thing is, you said they can't go back to Casey Bauman. I don't know why. Of course you can. Tucker Rovig just went 13 of 26 for 77 yards, completed 2 passes for less than 3 yards, not picking up first downs. And by the way, this isn't all on Tucker Rovig. In fact, a lot of it is not on Tucker Rovig at all.
So much of this is on the offensive coaches, man. Their offensive play calling is terrible. Jeff Choate said that at their press conference today. He said that our opponents have painted us into the box, and we have not had the courage to fight our way back out. Their offensive scheme is so rudimentary, it's nuts, man. Like, I'm not sitting here trying to be like, I know more about offense than guys that get paid the big bucks to do this, but some of the stuff that they run is just crazy. It's so irrational, and it seems like they could just do so many things that are so simple, and they just refuse to do it.
So again, I'm not sitting here. I don't want to sit here and bash anybody at all. Okay, this isn't all on any one person or whatever. But if you're talking about the production that you're not getting from your quarterback, you can go in a different direction anytime you want to, or you think that you need to, and that's just what it is. Let's hear from Tucker Rovig quickly from his post-game press conference.
This loss seems, I think, more than it did when we played Sac State. Just being so close, but also not playing good football at all.
And he's absolutely right. Like, it stings not just because we lost, but because they were in control, frankly, of this game and of its destiny, and lost it in the end.
I mean, the irony for this coaching staff and this fan base has to just sting so much, because Chris Murray was an incredibly raw, incredibly volatile, but an incredibly intriguing prospect at quarterback. He was thrust into action early, partially because of the choice of the coaches, partially because of the failures of Tyler Brugman. Well, he played before he should have ever played. But then he also somehow didn't have the foundation or the support system that he needed to be able to stay eligible. And the number one knock on Chris Murray was that he just was not mature enough to be the leader that Jeff Choate cultivates and covets as a quarterback. So they turn the summer workouts over to Troy Anderson, and they say, okay, you're going to be the dude who's running the stuff because we trust you. But that's probably not going to mean anything but you're just the captain of the squad. Well, then Troy Anderson, has the confidence and the competitiveness to beat out Tucker Rovig and Casey Bauman. So now you roll with him at quarterback for most of the year last year. And they said that they wanted to then replace Troy Anderson with Tucker Rovig, but then Tucker Rovig gets hurt. The whole point of the story is you can talk about Tucker Rovig's operational flaws, his inability to get the ball out, his inconsistencies throwing good passes. But the main flaw of Tucker Rovig is mental. He doesn't have the confidence. And that's why the quarterback position is so important, because you have to have a dude who makes the rest of your team believe. And this team has played incrementally less confident as the season has progressed. Now that people have packages to defend Travis Johnson. I mean, Travis Johnson was the dude making it all happen for them during their winning. He had a 3-game stretch where he rushed for about 250 yards and had about 200 yards receiving, carrying the offense. And he scored the game-winning touchdown against Cal Poly. Now that people have packages for Travis Johnson, his role has been lessened, and now all of a sudden so much is on Rovig, and he just doesn't have the fortitude to lead you out of it. I think it's hurting the confidence of the entire team. That's the thing, is you can go out and you can play macho football when you know you got number 15 taking the snap every time, because at the end of the day, Troy Anderson just figured out a way to bail him out. For the whole month of November last year, Troy Anderson figured out a way. Troy Anderson and Travis Johnson straight up bailed him out against the Grizzlies last year in Missoula. Now they don't have the confidence that that's going to happen. So then when does it start to eat at you internally? When all of a sudden does the defense start to have resentment over the lack of production on the offense? I mean, there's so many different factors here, but I just think that Montana State has gotten themselves in a terrible situation, and I really don't know unless – I mean, we talked about they needed to take a look in the mirror during the bye week. I don't know if that happened. If you have 2 weeks to prepare and you go perform like that on offense, I mean, you look at the 243 rushing yards, you take away the 48-yard run by Demarius Hosey, the 49-yard run by Troy Anderson, and then I think there was another long run on an end-around by Mark Estes.
25 yards.
You take those out, and Montana State averaged about 2.9 yards per carry.
But here's the thing. You can't take those out because you were predicated on big plays to a certain extent in the run game. Here's what's crazy to me when you talk about looking in the mirror or not. What did I say to you about passing attempts coming out of Sacramento State? Tucker Rovig, or frankly any quarterback from Montana State, is throwing the football 25 to 30 times. That's not good. You're probably losing that football game.
Right.
In a game that's 16-12, that you did rush for 250 yards, why in the wide world is anybody throwing the ball 26 times? Travis Johnson, you can have as many defenses built up for him and everything else. He only ran the ball 7 times.
And like, as Jeff Choate said, he's a little bit banged up too.
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, though, that's the thing though. When you can, I give Choate and his staff a lot of credit for always being like, we're not going to make excuses. Injuries are a part of football. But at the end of the day, when you're running Travis Johnson head first into the defense, what do you think is going to happen? Like Isaiah, it's no question to me. It is the most black and white thing with the Bobcats. Troy Anderson and Isaiah Fonse could combined to have 76% of Montana State's offense last year. Now they're both hurt. Yes. Imagine that. Yeah. Travis Johnson is Mr. Do Everything for a 4-game stretch, but now he's banged up. Of course he is, and that's where these guys just.
But let me get on the side of Montana State on this. What are they supposed to do as a coaching staff? I mean, these are your guys. They're your players. Give them the football and they run with it. I mean, that's.
I think you got to.
How are you supposed to mitigate the way that you're using them while still using them to their most efficacious?
It's a great question. I think you just have to figure out how to be not so predictable on offense. They've just become so predictable. Like. You're right. You need to get the ball to Troy Anderson and Travis Johnson. You do. But you can't just have 1 or 2 plays where everybody knows that's what's going to happen. Let's take a break because I want to keep talking about this. I have a question to ask you. So on the other side, we're going to talk about how struggles at quarterback matriculate into the entire rest of the team and what this means for Montana State coming down the stretch.
Stutel Nuanez, we're just rolling. It's the Montana Football Show on a Monday next.
Have you been in an accident and have no idea what to do? I'm here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys.
Unfortunately, people are injured in accidents every day, and dealing with the insurance company can add even more pain to an already bad situation. That is where hiring the Advocates can help. Let us guide you through the process and take on the hassles for you so you can just focus on getting better.
If you've been injured in an accident, give the Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. The Advocates are on your side.
Alpine Touch has been part of the fabric of Montana for more than 60 years. Decades ago, Russell Street started selling his touch of magic in whitefish. Years later, Alpine Touch's all-purpose seasoning remains a favorite. It's tailgating season, and there's no better way to spice up your grill before a Grizz game than with Alpine Touch. Go to alpinetouch.com now and use the checkout code ESPN10 for a 10% discount on your order. Alpine Touch is here to keep your mouth watering all football season. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Tires. You know, we've been helping keep folks safe on the road around here since 1952. That's why you can save up to $152 on a set of 4 select light truck and SUV tires during our fall tire sale. So swing by or book an appointment at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952. Limited time offer while supplies last. Discount depends on tire size and type. Cannot be combined with other offers. Details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
We combine quality ingredients with home-style recipes to create the Montana Club's Fall Comfort Food Menu. Savor our tender boneless beef short rib or caramelized brandy apple pork shank. Dig into our classic savory chicken pot pie or fall for our zesty skillet lasagna. Top things off with our creamy pumpkin skillet a la mode. Scratch-made comfort food that's as real as it gets. Served 11:30 to close at the Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
The Polaris Factory Authorized Clearance is here. The world's best-selling off-road lineup is priced to move with financing as low as 3.99% and rebates up to $3,500. Live life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on a legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. The best deals of the year are happening now. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $3,500 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Factory Authorized Clearance. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. Kurtz Polaris is now showcasing all of the new 2020 Polaris off-road vehicles. To be the first to get a great deal on brand new state-of-the-art Polaris vehicles at Kurtz Polaris. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. Rebates valid in U.S. through 10/31/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Financing offer valid on 2015s through 2020s, subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. The number 10 Montana Grizzlies trailed Eastern Washington 14-10 at halftime, but won the second half 24-3 behind a newfound bruising rushing attack on the way to a 34-17 win over Eastern Washington. Sophomore running back Marcus Knight rushed for 131 yards, totaled 196 yards from scrimmage, and scored 3 touchdowns on an afternoon in which the Grizzlies ran for 254 total yards on a season-high 55 rushing attempts.
In his first career start at quarterback, UM junior Cam Humphrey completed 20 of 29 passes for 176 yards, including a 6-yard touchdown pass to Sammy Akem with 12 minutes to play that helped UM seal its third Big Sky win. The Grizz are on the road this week at Portland State.
After contributing to 3 of Montana State's 4 sacks of North Dakota quarterback Nate Ketteringham, MSU junior Troy Anderson almost saved the day for the Bobcats in Grand Forks. The All-American two-way starter ripped off a 49-yard run that set up the 31st rushing touchdown of his illustrious career and gave MSU a 12-10 lead with 8 minutes remaining.
But Montana State allowed a blocked punt in the UND end zone that led to the game-winning score. North Dakota posted a 16-12 win. The Bobcats have now lost 2 straight and sit at 2-2 in league play, 5-3 overall. Montana State returns home to face Southern Utah this Saturday. T-Birds scored 59 against Idaho State last week.
Also, the Washington Nationals lost all 3 home games. Road teams are 5-0 in the World Series, Game 6 tomorrow night. I know we're not going to get to this today, but that Max Scherzer was a scratch from the last home game of the season in a World Series was stunning to me. I mean, you could have told me that aliens landed on the planet Earth yesterday, and it would have surprised me less than Max Scherzer not going. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. We have been hot and heavy on both the Grizz and the Cats. And Montana with a win. It's a bounce back. You can spin that thing pretty positively for the Grizzlies. Again, Eastern Washington only okay this season at best. But that said, it was a win against a rival, and Montana's 6-2, and they've only got 1 loss in conference, and everything's out there in front of them for Montana State. This is a terrible loss. This is obviously the worst loss of the season, coming off of a bye, which was already coming off of a loss. They're now 500, and by the way, everything's still out in front of Montana State too. This is not the sky is falling from Montana State, but it is an ugly, ugly look, all things considered, for Montana State. Coulter, you said that you had a question that you wanted to ask going in. It's okay.
I want to extrapolate on this conversation a little bit. So let's go to the phones here. We got a call from Gabe.
All right. Let's go to the phones. We welcome in Gabe to the show. Gabe, hi. How are you? What do you got, man?
Oh, hey. How are you guys doing?
Great.
So, first things first, I just want to say go Grizz. Fight on. Let me get that out there right quick.
Okay. Now we know it's good. It's good to be aware of the biases before we start the conversations. All right.
So I was just wondering, because if I'm not mistaken, Travis Johnson was recruited to Oregon as a quarterback. Am I not right?
He was.
Correct.
Yeah. So has Jeff Choate just slammed the door on the idea of him throwing the ball? Like, what's going on there?
If you watch Travis Johnson practice, he has very flawed throwing mechanics. He's not a great thrower of the football. But thanks for the call, Gabe. Great point. This has been the most perplexing question to me. And I asked Travis Johnson this exact thing when I was interviewing him for our senior profile, which you can go check out. We printed it last week, SkylineSportsMT.com. Travis Johnson's a fascinating kid who's walked a fascinating path. I mean, this kid was the starting quarterback at Servite High School, which is one of the premier schools in the Trinity League in Southern California. He had offers from 38 different FBS programs. This guy's going on official visits to Alabama, Penn State, Oregon, USC, and he chooses Oregon because they told him he could compete for the starting job as a true freshman. So he graduates high school early and goes there. Scott Frost wanted him to be the dude, and if he wouldn't have broke his foot, they wouldn't have had to go get Dakota Prukop, which is one of the most ironic things of this whole deal. Travis Johnson gets hurt, and then Oregon steals Dakota Prukop from Montana State, and now then Bobcats have been in quarterback purgatory, actually quarterback hell, since that occurred. But I asked Travis Johnson, I said, what do you think of the prospect of you are going to likely finish your career, 5 years of college football, after being the number 3 quarterback recruit in the country without playing a game as the starting quarterback at any level of college football? Not at Oregon, Not at Riverside Junior College, not at Montana State. That is wild.
Yeah.
What if, the kid throws the ball with a really low arm angle, and he looks funny when he's doing it, but he's unquestionably one of the best athletes in the league. And what if he's just a gamer? I just don't know how you don't just give the dude a chance.
Well, and again, it's a very good question and a reasonable one by Gabe on this, because Travis Johnson, by the way, did throw the ball twice, two completions on 2 attempts for 20 yards in the football game on Saturday.
But it's mostly jet sweep, fly sweep
He has
plays.
played the position of quarterback, but it has almost all been exclusively in the +1 run game.
Exactly.
And by the way, he's also their best wide receiver. I mean, if you see, we've stood on the field, standing there next to Travis Johnson playing football. There's him and there's everybody else from the skill position standpoint. I mean, he is as different as Sammy Akem appears on, when he's lining up against everybody else. That's how different Travis Johnson appears when he's lining up against everybody else. So it's like, it's no doubt that this is the dude who needs to be out here doing it. But like you said, here's the ironic thing. Whether they're throwers, whether they're runners, whatever they are, there does not appear to be a quarterback that Montana State has on its roster that's available to them right now that can actually just step back and throw a football.
Right.
And that's oversimplifying it. There's some guys who can throw great footballs, but not on time, into the places, making the decisions in the moment that you need to do to play quarterback as a pass-first guy at the D1 level.
Well, and this is the hole that they've dug themselves to, because they've had 2 of the greatest rushing quarterbacks in the history of the league. There's only been, I think, 4 quarterbacks that have ever rushed for more than 1,000 yards in a season. Montana State did it back-to-back years with Chris Murray going over 1,100 yards and Troy Anderson going over 1,400 yards. All the RPO stuff, the zone read stuff that they run, having the +1 quarterback advantage in the run game helps them so much. Now they don't have that. So now that part is a little bit one-dimensional. Also, so much of the offense is predicated on then hitting the deep ball. What did Troy Anderson actually do incredibly well down the stretch last year?
Yeah,
he could throw the deep ball. He would complete. They call him 50-50 balls for a reason, and he was good enough to complete half of them. And him and Travis Johnson would hook up. They had one on the very first play of the game against Cal Poly. They had one on the very first play of the game against Incarnate Word. They had one right out of halftime against the Grizzlies. And those 49-yard gains, now all of a sudden the safeties are creeping, or they're backpedaling, and now Troy Anderson has the advantage because he's coming straight downhill at you. That part of the offense is negated too. So much of this is just the inability to operate at quarterback, but so much of it, to me, is offensive play calling. They don't do the most simple stuff that you can do. I just got a text from Brandon Bossack, good buddy of mine, who went to Big Sky. He played tight end for the Cats, a very successful career at Montana State. And like he said, I'm looking at the stats right now. Derek Snell, Montana State's H-back/tight end, he's got 3 catches this year. 3 catches for 27 yards. Ryan Davis has not caught the ball. He's their starting tight end. You have multiple guys who you're playing at the tight end H role. R.J. Fitzgerald's another example of one. They don't even think about throwing these guys the ball. I mean, what's an easier way for a guy to get into a rhythm than take Ryan Davis? I mean, he's 6'3", 260. Just run him on a little stick route 3 yards to the outside of the hash and throw him the ball. Get ahead of the sticks. Let Tucker Rovig settle in. They had a shot. They had a shot play down the field that Travis Johnson dropped, and that really set them back. But it seems as if those sorts of mistakes manifest themselves so much within the scope of this offense, and one thing leads to the next, and all of a sudden you're just spiraling out of control and you have no rhythm whatsoever. It just seems as if there's so many things they could do to keep it simple that they don't, and then some of the simple things they do are just mistimed. There's just such a lack of continuity all the way across the board offensively.
It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. 329-1899 if you'd like to get in. I'm certainly happy to have you. You had a question you wanted to ask into the break, so go ahead.
I do have a question for you. So football is the greatest team sport ever created, right? Because it takes so many guys.
That and golf.
50-plus guys it takes operating not only on the same page, but also playing for each other, with each other.
Right.
So Jeff Choate has always had uses his line, one side's got to rise. One side's got to bring us up to get the other one to rise. And sometimes, even though they have struggled offensively, it's been the offense. Like against Northern Arizona, they were gashing in the run game. They were operating well offensively in the things that they're good at. And that rise the level on both sides. But to me, it seems when a quarterback is operating at a less than necessary level, that it can just kill the confidence of a locker room, period. And Montana State, they have a lot of dudes on defense that came to be a part of what was supposed to be a hashtag win big season, a special season. Jason Skrempos is a grad transfer from UW. He came here not to go 7-5. He came here to be on one of the most fearsome defenses in the league and a team that's making a run in a conference championship. Jackway Allen is a world away from his hometown. I mean, he is from Virginia Beach, Virginia. I guarantee you he's not excited about practicing at 6 o'clock in the morning, but he would be if they were hashtag win big. Munchie Filer, a guy from Compton College. I mean, he's still getting his feet back underneath him after missing most of the first half of the season with an injury. But he's there for one reason and one reason alone, to play football, to win football games. So I'm just wondering what the status of the confidence of the whole team is. I'm not trying to say that they're going to have a divided locker room and everybody hates Tucker Rovig or anything like that. I just think that one of the biggest advantages Montana State had last year, even with some of the deficiencies that Troy Anderson might have as a traditional quarterback, was they knew they had a chance to win always because they had a dude who was operating the offense, and then all their guys on defense could be dudes. Now it seems as if the lack of confidence that anybody has in the operation of the offense is matriculating now into affecting the way that the defense plays. They've played well operationally, but they don't seem to have the same edge that they had last year or even earlier on this season.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is you don't need you and me and any football expert in the world to come in and look at a game or two of Montana State film and go, okay, we can see, broadly speaking, what is at issue here.
Right.
So when you're playing, I mean, we've seen this at every level of football, right? Where one side of the ball, it doesn't matter which side, is clearly better than the other side of the football. This is so odd, though, because I don't even think that's the case. I think both sides of football in Montana State are good. In fact, potentially quite good, very good. But they have not played up to the level offensively, specifically because they can't get the production that they need, the timely production they need in the pass game to let what they do have offensively, which is plenty to work with, to equate to win big, like you said. At some point, that can be a complete deal breaker, an implosion for a football team. It is not there yet, and I don't even know that they're necessarily close to it at Montana State. This team's lost 2 games. Lots of teams lose 2 games during the course of a season. They got a couple of get-right opportunities here, which I want to talk to you about in a moment as well, against Southern Utah and then against Northern Colorado. And all of this stuff, all of this stuff we're talking about now has been true all year long. It's just they were winning.
Right, but they lost their edge.
I mean, I don't know.
When you run the same play against Northern Arizona 17 times in a row, you got an edge.
Mm-hmm.
They stopped doing that. Everything has gone into this tiny little box.
Oh, but you're talking about that's offensively.
But all along the way, I mean, Bryce Dirks got 1 sack since the conference season started.
Yeah,
and a lot of that's the opponents that they were playing, and the fact that he moved to the strong end spot, so people didn't really have film on him with his hand in the ground. But regardless, to me, they're not playing with the ferocity that you would expect from a team that has so many seniors and so much experience and so many great athletes.
Yeah,
and that's the other thing is you said, a lot of teams win or lose 2 games, but this is where when you're under a microscope like you are in Montana, at either Montana or Montana State, and you talk and preach your vision like Jeff Choate has so consistently and so thoroughly, then you got to put your money where your mouth is. And I think that's why Bobcat fans and followers have been so disheartened and disappointed over the last 3 weeks, because you could talk about we're a fourth quarter team. We win when the game's on the line. And when you're doing it, it's all true. And then as soon as you get straight punched in the face against Sac State, okay, Sac State's better than a lot of people indicated. So maybe you swallow your pride, but you would just expect so much of a better effort. Like, to me, the loss on Saturday was so much more indicative of a larger issue than anything else.
Here's the thing, though. The loss on Saturday, man, is... I mean, it's partially injuries, And then it's on the coaches to me.
It is, man.
The defense though played great.
The defense played well,
great.
totally.
So if you're talking to me about one side of the ball being upset with the other side of the ball, and we got to go out here and make yet another stop because we can't score any points or anything like that. That happened on Saturday. That was true Saturday. I don't think it's true of this team in general.
Totally. Yeah.
The one thing I'll say is this: I said, and I don't even think they're close to that. They will be close to it though, if for some reason and in some way they don't win both of the next two games.
Oh, absolutely. No, these two teams are not just the two worst teams in the Big Sky Conference. They're the two worst teams that the Big Sky Conference has had in a couple of years.
Yeah, and so
I know Southern Utah went off last week, but they've lost 19 out of the last 21 games before Saturday, and Northern Colorado is just
awful,
non-competitive,
just awful, non-competitive. So the point is that even though these are games that on one hand are really good for Montana State right now because they can iron it all out and we'll be so far removed from the loss to North Dakota if they go and win by 35 each in the next two, whatever, that's all well and good. However, if somehow Southern Utah, who just jumped up and got Idaho State, jumps up and gets Montana State Saturday in Bozeman, I don't know if there's another game to be won. I mean, it is in huge trouble, and that's why this is precarious, because this loss will translate. This loss goes from making these games expected wins, which they still are, to must wins.
Yes, totally. And I'm not trying to sit here and say that this offensive coaching staff or this coaching staff in general doesn't understand the simplicity of the things I'm suggesting. But Jeff Choate, I cannot wait to play this sound for you guys tomorrow, because he talked about it. He talked about the confidence that the coaches need to have in the players to give the players. They need to show the players confidence. And I think that's the thing. They probably do have a tight end stick route in their offensive acumen, in their offensive arsenal. They probably do have lineup trips and throw a flood pattern. They have that. They just don't have the confidence to call it. And it's a total problem. It's not just Tucker Rovig. It's not just Matt Miller. It's everybody.
Take a break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up a Monday show next.
Katie O'Keefe's has been a neighborhood favorite in the corner of the Stevens Center for years. But if you haven't been into Katie's lately, come on in and make sure to turn left. The downstairs bar is completely remodeled with one of the biggest, best spaces anywhere in Missoula to watch games, play games, and hang out with all your friends. Katie O'Keefe's is your horse racing simulcast headquarters in Missoula. Come into Katie's and turn left for cribbage, darts, pool, and much, much more. Katie O'Keefe's, where the cocktails are always cold and the people are always friendly.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up.
Hungry? Visit the Town Pump Deli. Big Dog wraps are only $3.49. While you're there, you can pick up a 24-pack of Pabst or Rainier for only $17.99. Town Pump, they've got just what you need.
Have you been hurt or disabled? Are you missing time from work and not sure what to do? I'm attorney Chris Helmer, and Clark Fork Law Offices in Missoula is here to help. Our team specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. We fight for the benefits you deserve. Call Clark Fork Law at 728-0168 for a free consultation, or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
The big skies are open. Go wild with Opportunity Reward Checking. Go ahead, jump, dance, shout. Opportunity Reward Checking will make you do that. Go wild when you get your 1% cash back on qualified debit card purchases. It all starts with an Opportunity Reward Checking account from Opportunity Bank. Visit a branch today to get started. Then go wild and spend your 1% cash back however you want. Go wild with Reward Checking from Opportunity Bank. Some restrictions may apply. Member FDIC.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Help protect our community from prescription drug misuse, abuse, and overdose on National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day. This Saturday, you can turn in your unused or expired medications at the Grizz game. Just look for the DEA booth at the parking lot near the entrance of the stadium. If you can't make it to the game, go to MissoulaCounty.us for a list of Dropbox locations in Missoula. This event is brought to you by Curry Health Center, Safe Kids Missoula at Foundation for Community Health, and the Prescription Drug Task Force, a coalition of Missoula City County Health Department.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
What a show. Montana football show on a Monday. Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. Happy to be with everybody on SWX Montana Television across the state as well. Pleasure to have you here. If you missed anything in the show today, go check it out on the podcast. The Tutel and Nuanez podcast is a good one. You want to listen to it, share it with your friends, get all the insight, and get yourselves riled up. Tutel and Nuanez podcasting available wherever you get your podcasts. It's there thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Hey, boys and girls, I've told you this before. I'm going to tell you again. Clean your gutters. It's not the job for you, okay? Somebody else needs to do it, specifically MissoulaGutterCleaning.com, okay? It's too much work. It's messy. It's ugly. It's freezing cold now. It's snowing and sleeting and ice everywhere, and your gutters need to get cleaned out so they can do the job they're supposed to do. And you don't need to get injured doing it. MissoulaGutterCleaning.com. Get your estimate today. They'll give you a $20 gift card to your favorite brewery or coffee shop when the work is done. Online right now, MissoulaGutterCleaning.com. MissoulaGutterCleaning.com. Are you remote starting your car now? Is that what's going on? Coulter's just gotten up and walked across the studio.
Gotta do it, man.
That's unbelievable.
I mean, it's like snowing ice or something. Like the whatever's coming out of the sky is like freezing instantly, whether it's on your car or on the roads.
By the way, people, yeah, Coulter, tell them, because it is an absolute catastrophe on the roads right now. If you have any choice to not go out, don't go out.
Sheriff's Department issued emergency travel only on I-90, both eastbound and westbound. When I was coming into the office, there was a wreck around Russell and Mount. I guess right there, Russell and 14th is where it's at. And there was also a wreck two wrecks on Reserve. I heard there's a wreck up the way on 3rd Street towards Higgins. There's wreck out Mullen. So everywhere there's wrecks. It's not just the snow. We all tease, first time driving in snow. This is straight black ice.
No,
whatever's coming out of that.
Ice. Yeah.
I mean, even when you're stopped at the intersection, when you go to start driving, you start spinning. So if you don't have to, don't. Everybody get home, stay home. Don't be on the roads.
I'm going to be fine because the upside for me is my tires are as bald as Matt Hasselbeck, and my heater doesn't work. So I'm going to be in great shape getting home out of this thing. Looking forward to it. Coulter, how would you like to finish? Do you want to talk about Dolphins Steelers and the Steelers being a 14-point favorite?
On this Montana
then let's
State
keep rolling.
Conversation because I just think it's so fascinating.
Let me ask you this. Okay.
I want to read this quote. We're going to play this sound tomorrow, but I want to re-emphasize this. Jeff Choate said today, he said, as the UND game got tighter, you could almost sense that it was like, let's not screw this up. Let's not make any mistakes. You got to play to win. You can't call games or play games not to lose. That's what we're doing right now. He said, if we show the players that we believe in them and have confidence in them, and if plays are available, let's call that play. Let's not get pushed into a box. That's what happened on Saturday. As the game got tighter, we started to call the game not to lose it. That's the worst situation you could be in when you're talking about combat sports. If you're playing or fighting not to lose, you will lose.
Right.
You will lose because it'll matriculate to the point where you'll make all the mistakes. And that's what happened to Montana State. They literally, even with playing poorly and not operating well on offense, they still had a lead late in the fourth quarter. And a team that has been traditionally pretty darn disciplined and at least adequate on special teams lost it all. They didn't fair catch the punt. They could have had the ball on the 15 to 17 yard line. Instead, they get it at the 1. They get positive yards. They give up a sack. They get a false start. They let the punt block. The whole thing just matriculated on top of itself, and that's what you got to avoid. And to me, that's what I was trying to get at earlier in the show, was that this is just, to me, again, it's not as if they don't have some simple plays in the offense. They're just not calling them because they just don't have the confidence as a collective group. And I think it's going to take going outside your comfort zone to get it fixed.
Here's the thing is, I think that Montana State offensively has done everything they can to play to their strengths, which Makes all the sense in the world. Travis Johnson is your most explosive, fastest football player. Plays offense, get him the football. Let him be quarterback or let him run, the +1 stuff, the Wildcat stuff. And also, he's catching the football. I mean, he had like 7 receptions on Saturday as well, so he's out there in the receiving game as well. Of course, throw him the football. Let him do it. Troy Anderson, okay? He's injured, but we still got to use him. Let's use him. That stuff is all good, but it's also not for this team, actually, but in general in football, it's all sort of gimmicky, okay? And so the simple stuff, like you're saying, like, hey, just run a 3-yard stick route to your tight end, that's not the strength of your team. Your tight end isn't the strength and your quarterback isn't the strength, so they don't do it. But then but when you look at it as it's a simple play, like if you can't do that, you can't play Division I football, period, then that should get mixed in and alleviate some of the stress on these other guys, on your other playmakers. I think Montana State has looked far and wide for ways to get their playmakers the ball in their hands, and they deserve credit for that, and they have done that. But also, it has sort of come at the expense of just calling a game in a way that makes sort of broad sense. And I would also add this. There is an art to play calling, not just to the plays that you run, but to when you run them and what the situation is, not just down and distance, but it's a feel thing. And you talk about play callers all the time, getting into a rhythm and feeling good about, they're one step ahead of the defense and all of that. That is something that I have not seen out of Montana State very much. They have run plays almost individually, like it's just this play, now it's the next play, now it's the next play, and it doesn't often feel like it's a cohesive sort of plan, a theater of a dozen plays that work together and they make sense together. And obviously, you want to call the best possible you can call in any individual moment, but there's a meta narrative to calling offensive football as well. And by the way, I'm the last guy on earth who's going to sit here and tell you what that is, but I know it's there, and I know it when I see it, and I don't see it in Bozeman.
Well, that's the thing. What you're saying is 100% right, and that's because the whole foundation of what they've been trying to do on offense has had to be scrapped because they don't have the elements that they used to have. It's the sickest irony ever if you're their coaching staff, because they tried to recruit traditional quarterback. They thought they found one, but in turn, you've made yourself so much less diverse on offense. They actually had one of the most diverse offenses in the country when they couldn't throw the ball.
Right.
Because you can run all this jet sweep, fly sweep motion, pre-snap motion, and when the quarterback's a threat to run it, it makes the defender's head spin.
Yeah.
When you're running basically the triple option out of the spread, and then it's like more like a quadruple option because Chris Murray could throw it sometimes, every once in a while. Now all of a sudden you can move the ball on offense up and down the field, and they just have not been able to do that. What you're saying is so true. All their inside zone stuff is made more dangerous when the inside zone could also be a read option. All their read option stuff is made so much more dangerous when it could be an RPO, and on down the line. The quarterback counter, quarterback power, they don't have that stuff anymore, and so there is no fluidity. Now it's just inside zone. Oh, it's 3rd and long. We're going to try to throw it. We can't. What do we do?
And also, you do have to get healthy. Like, if your 3 best players, far and away, your 3 best offensive players, skill position-wise, are all hurt.
Right.
I mean, it's tough. Look, Isaiah Ifanse, we haven't spoken about him. 5 carries he had was a non-factor in the football game. And that stinks. He's a guy who should be getting 20 carries a game and going for 125 yards. That's what he's outstanding, and they can't do that. That's hugely limiting. So it's a tough situation in that respect. That said, injuries are what they are. It's what the sport of football is. Everybody's got them, and you have to figure out a way to overcome that. I think Montana State will, at least for the next couple of weeks, and they need to. And they need to get I'm with you. I think not just quarterback, but in general, it's a mental thing right now. They need to be the aggressor. They need to walk in and go, we are going to kick the out of you, period, end of story. And they were that for a little while, and they have not been that now for the last month.
As the world turns.
It's
go time. The thing that they think that they can at least have confidence in is that they were in this exact same situation a year ago, and they surged down the stretch and made the playoffs. But they had one of the most special athletes in the country willing them to those wins. How do they find a way for Troy Anderson to be that guy again? To me, that's the entire key to this whole thing.
They're 5-3, 5-2 in the FCS, 2-2 in conference, and it is all out there in front of them. But it's a fun to talk about. Boys and girls, have a great Monday night. Stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow. In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
Do you know what's at stake after a car accident? Not only will you have to deal with pushy insurance companies, auto repair shops, endless doctor's appointments, and dozens of unforeseen problems, but also your normal day-to-day life. I'm Coulter here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys, and she knows how hard this can be.
That's right. And with all of that, it can seem tempting to take the quick settlement that the insurance company is offering. But I can tell you from experience that it is not going to be a fair amount. I see it all the time where someone has settled with the insurance company and months later realizes that they still have pain from the accident, and now they're having to pay those bills out of their pocket. I don't want that to happen to anyone.
So what should our listeners do, Catherine?
Give us a call and discuss your situation